great. Really good to. Thanks, team, for starting the recording. What I was saying is it'll be great to see where everyone is joining from. I'm based in New Zealand, and it is 4 o'clock in the evening here. Where is everyone else joining from? We'll just give it a minute and a half before we kick things off. We'll just give everyone an opportunity to join and not miss the amazing start of the webinar. Oh, Perth. Might be nice and early there, Angie. Perth and Sydney, yep, 11 a.m. Yeah, oh, that's not too bad. Yeah, Hamilton, that's same time zone as me. I'm actually going to I'm going to go to Taupo this weekend, so I'll be going past Hamilton. We've got Gold Coast, Singapore. Singapore is probably the same time as Perth, I think, 11 a.m. Wellington. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is our first webinar this year. We've got someone from Christchurch, Philippines. Hi, Mickey. Christchurch. Yeah, I was actually meant to be traveling to Queenstown next week and to attend a conference, but that's been cancelled because of the fact that we've gone into a red zone. So that's impacting a lot of events lately. Karamea. I don't think I've been to Karamea before. All right, I think we're good to kick off, team. We've got a few attendees, and I'm sure there will be other people joining in as well. So really excited to share a few things here today. Now, my name is Sahil, and I'll talk more about that, about myself a little bit later. But today, what we are going to be discussing is new year, new processes. We want to start the year on a good foot, so we'll be discussing some of the issues that your businesses, or either your business that you're working in, or your practice if you're an accounting practice, the kind of process issues that your clients could be facing. So just a bit of housekeeping. I don't think anyone's new to Zoom anymore, especially from the last couple of years. There's been so many virtual meetings. So I wanted to reiterate, there is a chat box, so please feel free to put in your comments. We want to learn from your experience as well. And part of this webinar is actually coming from all the things we've heard from our clients, and we want to share those with you. This webinar is being recorded, so if you want to share this with someone else after the webinar is done, please feel free to share the recording. And we aim to finish in about 25 to 30 minutes. And we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A as well. So if you've got any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat, or I would actually prefer, we've got a Q&A section as well. If you can drop those questions there, we've got our team online as well, and they will endeavor to get back to your questions as we go along. Otherwise, I will tend to some of those questions at the end of the webinar. So with that, let's talk about how we are going to be improving our accounts payable processes in the year 2022. So just a little bit about myself. So my name is Sahil Malhotra. I'm a CPA, so I'm a member of the CPA Australia since the last year. We're now finished all my papers and graduated, but I've spent a decade in the accounting industry, or in the accounting technology industry, having worked at Xero, at Practice Ignition, and a few other SaaS companies. And now with ApprovalMax, I'm a partner account manager where I help accounting firms and bookkeeping firms get on our partner journey and go through the onboarding process to essentially introduce ApprovalMax to some of their clients who could benefit from what we've got to offer. So in terms of what we want to be discussing today is that we've spoken to quite a lot of our clients, hundreds of our clients and hundreds of our accounting practices that service the business industry. And we want to talk about some of the most common bottlenecks we have heard of. But like I said, we would like this to be a two-way conversation. So if something doesn't feel right, or if you've seen processes in different ways, we'd like to hear from you as well. So please feel free to share your experience in the chat and let us know. Let's learn from each other. Then we want to go a little bit deeper into some of the problems and the causes of those inefficiencies in the accounts payable process. And just to keep it in simple words, an accounts payable process is basically just your bill receiving and bill payment process. You receive an invoice from a supplier and you have to pay that invoice, but that entire process from receiving the bill to payment of those bills has a lot of inefficiencies in some businesses, and that's what we want to talk about. We won't just be talking about problems, we will also be unpacking the problems a little bit and trying to figure out what the solution is. So we've got a bit of a step-by-step guide on how we can find a good solution for reducing some of those inefficiencies. And finally, I work at ApprovalMax, like I said, so we'd be telling you a little bit about ApprovalMax and how it can help in the authorization process and automating that for the business you are in. And then we'll have a Q&A section as well. Like I said, I'll be around for another 10, 15 minutes at the end of the webinar. So if you've got any questions throughout the webinar, please put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and we will get back to those. Okay, what's a good webinar without a poll, right? So that's what we'd like to start off with as well. You can have the poll up, team, please. Thank you. Okay, so look, most of you here are probably here because you would like to improve your accounts payable process. So we want to find out what kind of improvements you are looking for and where you are in the journey. So we'll run this poll. We'll leave there for another sort of 30 seconds. But please, like I said, drop your comments in the chat here as well. I think the main question is, why is it even important to have an efficient system for your bill management? We actually did recently I did a case study with a partner in Brisbane, one of my favorite partners. They're very progressive. They're a very progressive firm in Brisbane, Thinker Consulting, and they've got a client called News Marketing Agency, for which they implemented a really good accounts payable process. And they got a return on investment of $40,000. And it's a very conservative number because obviously, it's very difficult to put sort of dollar value to the time. But 25% of the time of a full-time employee was saved, which was then repurposed through those efficiency gains. So, I always like to talk about that story because straight away we can start seeing the value of a really good process. So we've had a few people put their comments in the, or added their comments to the poll. Okay, so what are we looking at? Okay, how would you evaluate your accounts payable process? We've had 42% people say we're already working on solving the inefficiencies of the accounts payable process. Great, that's really, really good. That essentially means you've evaluated that there is a problem, but you're looking at solving it. Please share your experience on how you're doing that. We are really interested in finding that out. 33% of you have said, I know where the inefficiencies are, but not sure how to get rid of them. That's great. We will be talking about this process moving forward in the next few slides, and we'll be unpacking that a little bit. And there are others, another 21% have said, I know our process is far from perfect, but have not identified the exact problems yet. Great. Okay, so more than 50% have got these inefficiencies, but don't know how to get rid of them. So we'd like to give you a starting point, and we'd also like to hear from those who are in the process of implementing solutions. So I'm going to stop the poll sharing. Okay, so look, let's start with identifying those bottlenecks, right? So I don't think this is going to be new information for any of us or a lot of our attendees. But here's what a typical accounts payable process looks like. Usually it consists of these 5 steps, and that's purely if you're not using purchase orders. It's only bill payments where you receive an invoice from a supplier, and that invoice needs to be paid. So this is where I'd like to ask, which of the steps here that are listed on the screen, which of these steps of this process you usually have bottlenecks or inefficiencies or any difficulties in? And I'll talk more about these in the next part of the process here as well. But if you can let us know which of these steps, I'll actually go back here, which of these steps, I think there's another poll coming up. You can let us know which of these steps you think you've got inefficiencies in, whether it's the processing of incoming invoices or entering those invoices into the accounting system, or is it reviewing and matching those invoices, or is it around the authorization process, or finally the payment process? If you can just drop it in the chat, perhaps. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's I was hoping someone was going to ask that question. That's great. Cool. Okay, let's actually start unpacking it a little bit. So I think, the way I want to talk about this is processing the incoming invoices. We have an understanding of where the common inefficiencies are. So first of all, it's being able to firstly receive that invoice. Now, manual processing of paper invoices, what I would say falls in the first step. It just takes too much time, costed money, wasted a lot of paper, and it's just not reliable enough. Paper can actually get lost. So really, when it's the first step in the process when you receive the invoices from a supplier. Now, business owners are busy meeting clients and customers, so not being in the office considerable amount of time means that when an invoice comes through, it requires to be printed, it requires approvals before it is paid out. So it might be left on someone's desk or your desk, which essentially can be left there for a couple of weeks if you're not in an office and seeing clients. And when that invoice is left there for a number of days, that means you're actually getting a lot of other supplier invoices from all different directions, and it's not being looked at for a very long time. And I think if that keeps happening, then there are chances of actually losing paper, which means the suppliers may end up picking up the phone and calling you, following up on why you haven't paid the invoice. So some people might think that, okay, let's stop printing paper and emails is the answer. But I think even emails are not efficient anymore. In fact, I was away for a couple of weeks on holiday and I received an invoice in my email, but because I was away for a couple of weeks, I did not look at the invoice for that time. And by the time I came back, there were another 300 emails I had to look at, which meant I completely sort of lost the invoice and the supplier ended up calling me. Now, it's not that my intention was not to pay the invoice, but it starts harming the relationship with the supplier that the person doesn't pay the invoices on time. So even emails, as I say, are not really efficient anymore. Now, we have established processing invoices manually is not just an option, right, in the digital world, but also if you're using dated accounting systems that still require a CD-ROM to be updated, or I don't even know what it's called anymore, the compact disk to update those accounting systems, they will also slow the process down because you can't have information required available anytime or anywhere. It's just too difficult to collaborate with such manual sort of accounting systems without a single source of information. You essentially end up with data in silos. And I think another point to mention here is insufficient budget control as well. It can be caused by lack of formal policies for budget control or by lack of proper processes to implement it in a business. So that means your invoices can actually lead to unnecessary spending and drastically impacting the budget for your business. And I think the same goes for the authorization process moving forward as well. So when we look at and typical approval process would probably require like 2 or 3 people to sign off on an invoice. And if you don't have a proper policy highlighting how those invoices need to be transferred over to which decision maker and who needs to be followed up, things can get lost in the chain. And if you've got a specific requirement for, I know for the likes of not-for-profits, there is actually a requirement for 2 or 3 people to sign off on an invoice before it gets paid. So in that scenarios where you need a delegated authority, ensuring an invoice is signed off by those different people in the business, any efficiency here is likely to be caused by a lack of a proper authorization policy or an easy and reliable process to follow such a policy. And then in the final step, when it's time to make payments, then you may already have crossed due dates, or you might be on the last day when payments need to be made due to all the broken processes at the start. So at that point, you could end up making payments in a rush. The invoices could be incorrectly coded, which means when you look at your profit and loss account, your financial reporting, they might be impacting different codes, or worse off, you might end up making payments on fraudulent invoices. And I see we've got a few comments here as well. So, entering invoices into the accounting system is a bottleneck. Reviewing and matching and sometimes approval, I find that really interesting because I think if you've got teams that are based in different regions, that becomes an even more of a problematic approach. Different time zones, you've got to pick up the phone and check with them where an invoice needs to be coded. So that is an inefficiency in itself. So look, like I said, we won't be talking only about the problems, right? We understand these are the problems that we have seen in our experience, and I'm sure at least one of those points that I've talked about is going to resonate with all of you on the call. So let's look at some of the tips on how to solve these inefficiencies. And like I said, please share your tips as well. What has worked for you? I will read the best ones as we go or at the end. So step one. Now, this might sound like a very obvious piece of advice, right? Most people, most probably you're already using some form of a cloud automated accounting software, but I think it's still important enough to be mentioned again and again to make the move to the cloud. Only with a platform serving as a single ledger or a single source of truth for your accounting purposes, you'll be able to properly control them and organize efficient workflows for your accounts payable team. Manual processes and paperwork really just lead to siloed data, as well as the inability to analyze a company's spending or get a proper overview of its incomings and outgoings. So we usually obviously talk about Xero, accounting tools like Xero that have enhanced the offering along with the appropriate app stack that suits you or your client's needs. It eliminates data silos and provides you with both a clear picture of the company spending in real time, and it also provides a real-time view of where the business is in general. So like I said, it's quite an obvious one, but it's not just moving to the cloud, it's also about using it effectively. The systems like Xero and the other apps that connect with it, they update the systems so regularly. If I remember correctly, I think every couple of weeks there are new features that are being introduced in such systems. So also keeping on top of that education and certification to keep on top of all the new features and the new functionality that you could be implementing in your business effectively to ensure you are getting full value from those software systems in the cloud. I've got a comment here that I really would like to read here from Caitlin. Auto forward setup in Outlook utilizing the Xero to Bill's email address so that invoices drop straight into drafts with the attachment. Still needs manual processing after that, though. That's a really interesting comment, and I think it's a good sort of segue into our step 2, which is where yes, obviously Xero to Bills is one way of looking at getting those invoices into the system. And if you set up auto forward rules, that would mean that you are never ever losing an invoice in the crazy amount of emails that we receive. Now, let's unpack the step 2 a little bit. So, the biggest source of clutter in an accounts payable billing process is paper or email invoices. You need to print the paper out, or and even if it's an email, you need to print it out, enter the invoice by hand into an accounting system, or if you use Caitlin's advice, then you can auto forward to the bills section in Xero. Eventually, the invoice needs approval as well, right? So if you're a small business with just one person who makes decisions on all invoices, that's absolutely fine. But if you're a slightly bigger business, or as you grow, having those invoices approved and having the space to store them and archive them becomes a problem. All in all, the cost of processing invoices manually is much higher than doing it digitally. Even if you only count the direct cost for paper, toner, physical storage, when you add the indirect costs, such as manual data entry time and potentially ending up correcting the data entry errors afterwards, you'll see that actually you're paying a huge price for using paper invoices. Now, this is an easy fix. To cut these expenses, just switch to digital invoices. Many suppliers will be able and happy to do so. There is a specific email that you can give to them where the invoices can directly be sent to some of those OCR-based systems for eliminating the manual entries and organizing your invoices conveniently. Basically, those OCR systems, they scan the details from your invoices and feed that data into the accounting system. This also it sort of paves the way for implementing a paperless approval process, which is the next stage in the process. In one of our case studies, actually, with ApprovalMax and auto entries is another OCR system. With a combination of ApprovalMax and auto entry, one of our clients managed to centralize the invoice, the process of entering invoices and enabling multi-layer approvals. And they did some calculation, they ended up achieving a yearly savings of $39,000, which provided, and on top of that, better controls for those invoices as well. So I highly suggest looking at one of those options to digitize your invoices and stop spending time on manual entry. So I think it would be good to know where we are with the invoice processing. Please let me know what do you use by ticking the box in the poll, which should appear here. So if you can let us know. So we've got an option here. We use e-invoicing in Australia and New Zealand. E-invoicing has been implemented, and I think also in the UK, if I'm not wrong. So it's either that, or you use a data capture tool already. For example, HubDoc, Dext, or Auto Entry, or Data Molino. There's so many out there. Or we process paper invoices manually. Well, I'm getting some really interesting responses here. We'll let the poll run for another 20 seconds. It's great, really good to see. A lot of you have actually moved to e-invoicing and they're really interested in. Cool. Okay, so we've stopped the poll. Cool. 33% are already on e-invoicing. That's really great. So e-invoicing essentially allows you to get the bills directly from your suppliers into your accounting system. It's only 33% of you that are currently using e-invoicing. I think it'll be good to explore that for your business. It's a new concept, but it's starting to pick up really well. 55% of you use a data capture tool like HubDoc or Dext. That's great, really good to see that. And we've got 36% processing paper invoices manually. I would love to talk to you. We're actually in the process of building a bit of a calculator to put some data in and understand how much time could be used currently in paper-based processes for processing, paper-based systems for processing invoices. Versus when you put different systems in place. Obviously, you might end up paying subscriptions, but overall, it's turning out that you end up saving a lot of money in the long term. But thanks for sharing your thoughts here. Okay, so let's move on to step 3. Okay, so now to make sure you're not going to overspend, right? When we talk about a bill payment process, it's actually money leaving your bank account. It's outgoings out of a business. Now, you also want to be able to understand if you've got the money to spend, or when we talk about, even at a personal level, I struggle with managing my personal finances. When you're running a business, there's so many different sort of products that you're buying. There's so many services that you're paying for, so many subscriptions. So to make sure you're not going to overspend, you'll need to include budget checking or some form of budget checking in your accounts payable process as well. You need to have clear budgets for each expense category, or at least the most used expense categories. If there are certain categories that are cost of goods or general expenses, for lack of a better example, then you need to have clear budgets on on how much you can spend in those categories, and then actually set up a process to monitor them in a way that does not affect team productivity. Going back to that process again, if you're printing out an invoice and then you log into an accounting software and look at your budget, just think about how much time you're going to be spending on that process. Now, I've got good news for you here. At ApprovalMax, we've actually got a budget checking function within the system, which it's only come out in November of last year. But when it comes to approval processes, it's usually very unclear for decision makers if they're actually allowed to make this decision, if the invoice or the decision is aligned with the budget. So it's quite typical for the decision makers to either make a blind decision and approve financial documents based on their intuition or their memory. Have you got enough funds? I think so. Yes, let's approve. Or they start to play a game of cat and mouse with the budget holders, asking if the transaction is actually aligned with the budgets. We wanted to fix that, and budget checking is exactly the tool for that. Decision makers can now in real time look at a transaction, an invoice in a single sort of setting or a single screen. And with each invoice, they can actually see how it's impacting the budget for a certain department or a certain expense category within your P&L. Not only do they see this data in real life, if you take a step back and see that data retrospectively, month by month, or as a year-to-date picture, it provides clear vision on any underspending or overspending throughout the year. So the way it kind of works is that you have an invoice that gets picked up through the process, and on the invoice itself, based on the account category it is coded to or the departmental category it's coded to, you'll be able to see the budget listed on that invoice. So you can make a decision whether you want to approve it, you want to reject it, if you want to push it out by a couple of months. If you're placing an order for a purchase order, for example, you can push it out for a couple of months, or it could be that you have to go to the bank and ask for more funds to be able to actually place an order. So those sort of things can actually be done using this budget checking function. If you need any help in exploring this, please get in touch with us. So moving on to the step 4, now when an organization starts growing, its spend control processes also become more complex and very tricky. Not just that, the last 18 months, we have seen a lot of people have been forced to work from home with the work from home scenarios that have, the lockdowns and everything. So, without a clear authorization policy in place, that complexity of the workflows will eventually cause confusion. And if you're not in an office, it becomes very difficult for you to go over to someone's desk and tap on their shoulder and ask a question. So that also becomes quite inefficient, which eventually leads to delays in the process of approving an invoice. So what I would say is, take some time to compose a document that actually contains detailed authorization rules, specify who's responsible for approving particular types of expenses, which amounts are to be approved by several stakeholders. There might be instances where you actually need 2 or 3 people to sign off on an invoice before it gets paid, and then which can be approved automatically. There are certain invoices where if you've set up direct debits, you probably don't need the approval process. So, you can set up auto approval steps in that case as well. And I think the best way to do it is actually having a flow chart to draw out exactly what that process could look like and who needs to have the delegated authority to make decision on an invoice. If you already have an authorization policy in place, but the process doesn't seem to be as effective, you should look closely to identify those bottlenecks and maybe add some more flexible rules. For example, if the CEO in your company is the only approver of all invoices, but just doesn't have the time to look through all invoices, and you are feeling that every time the payment that you have to make, once a month, twice a month, it's being delayed because the CEO is they just don't have the time to approve an invoice. You might want to consider delegating their invoice approval authority to someone else, or split it out so they're not the only ones approving everything. If the authorization process is still a major hindrance after all, and next tip is for you. So, you've digitized your invoices, you've implemented a cloud accounting system, you've prepared the budgets, and now you've also established a strict authorization policy, but something doesn't seem right. Now, it can be the problem with manual authorizations. If you're just we talked about it before, where if you are manually getting an invoice approved, that means even though you might have an OCR system to process your invoices digitally, but it also means to get the approval, you're probably printing it out and then getting that signed copy attached to the transaction. Most probably you're just trying to manage the purchase order and invoice authorizations by email, or like I said, on paper. This can lead to errors, it can lead to double handling, it can lead to delays, eventually ends up costing your team a lot of time. So an approval automation app can actually take a lot off your shoulders. With ApprovalMax, you can actually set up complex or very simple. So it's really up to your business, then whatever the requirements are, we can work with you on this. You can set up complex or simple multi-level approval workflows just once and then forget about it. It will just work without any human intervention moving forward. It will send automated notifications and reminders to approvers that need to make a decision, and it will take the invoice forward through the process. So the way it kind of works is, once you've got all these systems in place, the invoice gets received from the supplier, you've got auto forwarding rules, it goes through to the accounting system. Based on the rules you've set up in ApprovalMax, it gets redirected to the relevant decision makers, and that way you're splitting the authority as well. You've got a policy document that highlights all of that process, and eventually ApprovalMax will send notifications to the decision maker on their phone. On the go, they can make a decision. No need to print, sign, scan any document. In fact, and it's a bit of we've done some research on this, that if you're using all these systems together, 25% of the invoices that are going through this process are actually being signed off in the first couple of hours, and 50% of invoices are signed off in the first 24 hours. So you can imagine how much of a time saving you get. And when you look at your accounting data, it will truly be in real time, no delays. A supplier sends an invoice on the same day. You look at the accounting data, it should be up to date if everyone's following the process. And you can also add steps for budget checking through the process. There are certain businesses, and quite a lot of businesses, where there's a requirement for utilizing the purchase order function as well. So you send purchase orders to the supplier. So something like that can also be easily automated through this process, adding in the additional layer of delegated authority for those purchase orders. So that's actually, we actually call it a proactive spend control. So you've got a really good process of managing your purchase order approvals before the products are even ordered. And then when the invoice is received, you've got the ability to match the two together, the invoice and the purchase order, and look at any discrepancies in the prices if there are any. At the same time, comparing it with the budgets that you've got. Eventually, everything that goes through the system, each transaction has its own audit report, which highlights each of the stages of the invoice approval process, who has approved an invoice at what time, what date, how many people have taken it through the process. You can see bottlenecks, you can see which of the approvers is always delaying these decisions. So you can you might want to pull them aside and have a chat, have them downloaded the mobile app, or any of those processes that are delaying the payments. Now, I think I'm confident that this process we've talked about, it could save you at least 15 to 20% of the accounts payable team's time. And then this is coming from experience. We've talked to a lot of our clients, we've done research on this. We've got thousands of clients using this process. And this is what we see in the back end, that 15 to 20% of the time is saved. So you get a lot of efficiencies straight away. In some complicated businesses, you'll actually end up saving more than 30 to 40% of your time on these inefficient processes. So a little bit about what we do, what ApprovalMax is. We have talked about that, but we have been part of the Xero ecosystem since the year 2016. We are a top preferred partner in the app ecosystem with Xero. So that's if we've got any accounting firms on the call, that essentially is equivalent to the platinum status that accounting firms and bookkeeping firms aim for. We've got more than 200 reviews, all 5-star ratings. We are in the category of staff picks as well. So if you go onto the App Store, you'll be able to see that a lot of Xero staff recommend ApprovalMax to the clients as well. And most recently, in the last couple of years, we won the Xero App Partner of the Year award in New Zealand and the UK as well. So very, very proud of that. We've got a really good integration and relationship with Xero. And I've talked about the fact that, with using ApprovalMax in the process, you are able to save a lot of time, and 25%, 50% of your invoices are actually approved very, very quickly. So lastly, the solution that we offer will allow you to completely eradicate the need for paper or email-based approvals for invoices and for purchase orders. And that's, you'll see it in action, that you will really literally stop printing any paper from now on. You'll stop relying on emails, and nothing will get skipped. You'll be able to enable efficient spend control management as well by automating the authorizations of bills and purchase orders if your business uses those, and then have the ability to match the bills with purchase orders. Shield sensitive information. Now, from my past career, I think one of the biggest questions we used to get was, how can I hide my bank account details from, or how much money I've got in the bank from my staff in Xero? And using an app like ApprovalMax, if you have a staff member who only processes invoice, then they can actually be taken out of Xero altogether. So all of your invoices are being managed in the likes of Dex, HubDoc, and Xero, and ApprovalMax, and the Dex, HubDoc, or ApprovalMax, not in Xero. So only fully authorized invoices are going to Xero, which means you don't actually need that many users to have access into your accounting system. So you can actually shield some of the sensitive information that if you want to. And at the same time, there are some people who just don't have the understanding of how an accounting system works. So you can actually keep them out of the accounting system altogether. So all the clean data hits the accounts, hits the financial reports, and from there you pretty much got every other user who needs to be involved in invoicing outside of it. And as I said, we've got a mobile app which allows you to make decisions on the go. It sends you reminders, sends you notifications. So it's very easy. You might be sitting on a flight and you can still make decisions on an invoice. I'm not rubbing it in. I'm sure we're going to open up soon and we will be sitting on a flight soon. And finally, each transaction will have its own audit report. So if your business gets audited, auditors are going to love what they see. They've got a specific role for auditors as well. They can come in and take a look at what the workflows are. Each transaction will have its own audit report, which auditors seem to be very, very happy about. Cool. Okay, look, I have taken a little bit more of your time. Now, we've got a 14-day free trial. It's very easy to set it up. We've got a walkthrough within the app as well. So once you set up a trial, it becomes easy for you to just connect it to your Xero account, see how it works for you in 2 weeks. We've got a team who can reach out to you and do a one-to-one demo as well. Just give it a go, see how it goes, see how it works. And if you've got any questions, let us know. For accounting firms and bookkeeping firms, we've got a partner program as well, where as part of it, you will, lots of things here, but basically you get dedicated account management, you get one-on-one support from our customer success team, there's training and certification, and you're also entitled to discounts on subscriptions if you are bringing your clients onto ApprovalMax. There's a specific partner portal which you're given access to, which then allows you to set up your staff members, get them certified as well, and introduce ApprovalMax and the efficiencies that it offers to your clients. So with that, we'll step into some Q&As. I can see some comments coming through. I'm just going to the Q&A section first. I've got a question here. Can you demonstrate how it works? Budget, authorization, checking against PO, quotation, and its linkage into Xero. Does authorization able to send to other social media apps for approval instead of email? Great question, and as much as I would love to demonstrate to you, I don't think we've got. I'll have to sort of set it up in a way to have all the budgets and authorizations in place. So I would actually suggest, Hong, if you could perhaps book in a time and actually show you how this whole process works in about sort of 10 to 15 minutes. But it's worth spending some time together and actually going through, showing you what the budget, authorization, and the matching of purchase orders and invoices looks like, and eventually the linkage into Xero. In terms of social media apps, we've actually got our own app, ApprovalMax, which you can download from the App Store and also from Play Store if you're using Samsung operating system. And basically you get push notifications for any invoices that require your approval. So I strongly urge you to connect with us, and or we can connect with you after the webinar and set up a time to actually walk through exactly how the system works and then evaluate if it's going to work for you. Hope that answers your question. Okay, so we've got Gail is asking, does ApprovalMax look at the budget in Xero? Yes, Gail, that's right. So Um, it pulls all the budgets from Xero, but you also have the ability to upload a manual budget if you've got an Excel sheet, or if you're keeping your budgets somewhere else. So either way, yes, the option is there. So it pulls it from Xero, and then from there you decide how you. I mean, if some businesses have got multiple budgets, so you can actually decide which ones you'd like to activate, and if you'd like to have it as a monthly budget, quarterly, yearly. So there are a few different 7 or 8 different options. And then when you receive an invoice that goes into ApprovalMax, on that invoice, based on the account category or any of the departmental category, it impacts a budget, right, that you've got set up from Xero. And from there, basically the budget will be listed on the invoice, telling you whether you are within budget or you're exceeding a budget. So we work on a bit of a traffic light signal basis. If you're exceeding budgets, it marks it as a red cross. If you're within budget, it will be a green tick. So with each invoice, it keeps updating the number as well, and you'll be able to see in real time whether you've got enough funds to process or approve an invoice. Hope that answers your question, but like I said, I'm happy to get in touch with you, give you a demo, and show you really how it works. Okay, budget checking function works with purchase order approvals. Yes, it does, Gasal, it does. So very similar to how I've talked about the bill approval process. When you receive a bill that needs to be paid, the budget is impacted, and you'll be able to make a decision whether you want to pay it now or not. Same way with purchase orders as well. When a purchase order comes through, a user in the business will raise a purchase order. It comes through, and based on the account category or departmental category, when it impacts the budget, it will list it there. That call, if it's within budget, will be green. If it's over budget, it'll be red. And then you can make a decision whether you want to place the order for those products now, or whether you want to defer the decision to another month or something like that. So you can make those decisions for purchase orders as well. Okay, so Camilo has responded to Gail. I'm just a user, but from my experience, budgets need to be exported out of Xero and imported into ApprovalMax. It's very easy to do. So Camilo, that's kind of correct. It's our traditional way, but in November of last year, we have started a direct integration with Xero. So now from here on, you don't actually have to export and import. The direct integration pulls the budgets into ApprovalMax. We'd love to show you that as well, actually. So you don't have to export and import any of those budgets anymore. Justine's asking, is there any option to add a reviewer in the bill approval workflow for QuickBooks users? Ooh, I knew there was always going to be a question that was going to stump me. There is an option to add reviewers, and I know that for Xero, definitely there is. So that essentially means you can set up, and when an approver receives a notification to approve an invoice, they can also make changes if they have been set up as a reviewer. So if an invoice is coded to general expenses and it needs to be coded to subscription or advertising, that reviewer can make changes to the invoice and then make a decision on approval. But I'm not entirely sure if it's the same for QuickBooks users. We'll have to come back to you on this, Justine, if you don't mind. I'll get my team to connect with you and respond to your question. Camilo's saying, I didn't realize the seminar was for newbies, but it was good attending anyway. My team is a complete game changer. Best decision we ever made. That's awesome. Thank you, Camilo. That's really good feedback. It has made our lives so much easier. It's just a beautiful product. Thank you so very much, Camilo. Really, really appreciate you you sharing your experience. Thanks for your time. Congrats. Thank you. Will there be any webinars on budget? Absolutely. That's a really good question. There will be webinars on budgets. I don't quite know what dates, but our team's planning on preparing some additional webinars for all the new features we've released in November. One of them is budgets, another one is auto approval, and the third one is a vendor approval process. So you'll now be able to get a supplier approved first before you start raising purchase orders or invoices for the same supplier. Cool, thanks for your time. Thank you. Justin saying, I cannot see it in QB. Justin, yes, I think it's, I'll have to get back to you. I'm sorry, I don't want to give you the wrong answer here, but I'll have to check that before I can respond to you whether the reviews can be set for QB. We are working on quite a number of feature requests as well. So it could be that it's a feature request and we're working on it, but yeah, worth exploring, and I will let you know at the end of the session once we have an answer. Catherine saying Monty. Sorry, not sure what you mean there, Catherine. Are you talking about the Monty, the budgeting app, Monty? Oh yes, absolutely. Not just aware, we're one of our really top partners here in New Zealand. Really good solution. In fact, we've done a webinar with Sandy at Solutions and Services, which talks about how HubDoc, ApprovalMax, Xero, and Monty work together as a solution specifically for schools. So it should be somewhere on our website, but if you need us to send you a copy of that, it's a really interesting webinar, which actually gives you some good takeaways on how you can set up those systems together. Can match multiple bills with multiple purchase orders? Yes, absolutely you can, Kusal. You certainly can match multiple bills with purchase orders. In fact, most recently, we also developed a feature where you can put in specific dollar amounts as well. So you might say that I've got a purchase order for $1,000, and I've got, let's say 3 different bills coming through for like $300, $400, and another $300. And you can put specific amounts to be matched, and that would just leave the additional variance either on the purchase order or the bill, which can then be matched to any future invoices or purchase orders that you might be doing. So it's a bit of a complicated one to talk about as a concept, but we're happy to show you in a demo on how those bills and purchase orders can be matched. Cool. I've got a question here. How much is the solution? It depends on what you require. So if you are after just the accounts payable functionality, which is, or even purchase orders, so approvals for accounts payable, that's bills and purchase orders, then you need to go on our standard plan. But if you're looking at adding in the budget checking function as well, then you need to go onto our advanced plan. The pricing is listed on the website as well, so depends on where you are. It varies with currency. So if you're in Singapore, that might be Singapore dollars. If you're in Australia, it'll be in Australian dollars, and the pricing adjusts accordingly. So you can view that pricing on our website. But if you're an accounting firm or a bookkeeping firm, then connect with us. We've got a partner program, and there's, the subscription pricing is slightly different for our accounting partners. All right, cool. I think I've answered all the questions. If I haven't, please let me know. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining in, for listening to me. I'm really honored. You've taken your time to sort of come and connect with us. Like I said, I'm just going to stick around here for another few minutes if you've got any questions. Otherwise, if you've missed anything, we will get back in touch with you after the webinar. You'll get a recording of the same. But yeah, like I said, start a trial, set it up for 14 days. Connect with us. We'll do a one-on-one demo with you and show you how it all works. And I'll try and answer all your questions and that. Thank you very much, everyone. So I'm just going to stay here for another couple of minutes if you've got any other questions. Absolutely, Camilo. Please get in touch with us. We would like to show you that, the new budgeting. We might get a customer success team to connect with you as well. Catherine, I see you're still here. Now, you asked about whether I'm aware of Monty and solutions and services. No, I think Catherine's left. No, you're still here. You asked whether I know about the solution. Yes, I do. So was there a specific question that you had for me? Bye-bye, Camilo. I can actually allow you to, I can unmute you if you like. Or we might get in touch with you after the webinar, no worries. Great. Okay, well, thanks everyone again. So with that, we will end it here, and you have a good rest of your day. Thank you again for joining, and we will be in touch with you or connect with us if you've got any questions. Thanks. Have a great day. Bye-bye.